So 1 year ago today, I packed my bags and moved to the continent of Africa. And I only say Africa because in this year I visited 7 different countries. I got my own car and drove it across 5 different borders. And along the way I started running my own surf camps. Now for me to explain how it all happened, I have to start here in Ecuador. I came here in search of doing ayahuasca. I met a couple of people along my travels who have taken ayahuasca and it completely changed their life. My plan was to travel South America with the idea that if ayahuasca found me, then I'd do it. I learned a lot from my time in the jungle, but the main thing I learned was that I needed to go to Africa. And just like everyone else before me, it would also change my life. So from there, essentially I went back to working in a hostel in Hawaii. And this is where I planned everything. From saving money, from figuring out where to start, how to get around Africa, to what I'd even do there. One of my friends actually said she'd come with me. She had the idea of a surf project and I was instantly hooked. And now the fact that this was a surf trip, we had to start in South Africa. Now a lot of you are probably asking how I afford to do this. And honestly, the main way I travelled South Africa was working with a lot of different backpackers and hostels. I had 2 things to offer: social media promotion or my time as a photographer. In exchange, they would give me free food and accommodation. And you can literally do this with anything, from yoga to surf instructing to volunteering to handyman to photography. Doing this is honestly one of the best tips I can give for travelling full time. After the first 2 weeks, we finally got into the swing of things, moving around from hostel to hostel. We found one guy who was willing to rent his car to us, and that's when our travelling really began. The premise of our surf project was, why do people surf? We'd go from surf town to surf town taking photos of people surfing. We'd interview them after and share their stories about why they choose to surf. From beginners to experts, we'd share all the photos and all the stories on Instagram, like a Humans of New York, but for surfing. It also meant we could surf a lot ourselves. And after only recently starting surfing, I wanted to do anything that would keep me in the water. And as you can see from this wave, I'm not as good as the rest of them, but one thing I did learn from ayahuasca was to chase your passions.
It's funny how we had a place to stay tonight.
And we just left
We have to stay on the side of a road.
Honestly, I'm content with that.
I know, I'm happy. I think we made the right call.
What you doing, Jack? I'm a vlogger now.
Trying to text some hostels so we have a place to stay tonight.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Hey, sorry, was just checking if this number would work. I'm Jack, athlete with Jack Zero. Me and my friend Beata are photographers and videographers, and I'm here on a surf project. We just arrived in Mossel Bay. We're here for the next 2 nights. We were wondering if you'd like to collab in exchange for photos or for a couple of Instagram stories. I have 191,000 cringe on Instagram and 665,000 on TikTok. I'm so impressive. Living in a car.
Living in a car.
Jeffreys Bay was the town I was most excited to get to, the surf capital of South Africa. We found a surf lodge that were willing to take us in for a week in exchange for some promotion on Instagram. And this is where my journey and plan changed for a lot of different reasons. I wouldn't know it yet, but the surf lodge in Jeffreys Bay would become my base for the next year. And the lodge itself was situated 15 minutes from the famous surf town of Jeffreys Bay, with its own beautiful beach right outside its door. And to be completely honest, I fell in love with this place. As someone who was looking to improve his surfing skills, I found that Jeffreys Bay was the place to be. I also liked the 2 managers of this place, Emily and Shellen. Although Emily was probably for different reasons. They both showed me a great week, but what I really loved about the place is that it wasn't all about surfing. They had a load of different activities on offer. They had safari days, wakeboarding, hiking trails, horse riding, skydiving, bungee jumping, and then this is where I met Jamil.
Yeah, but I didn't love that. No. Come on, I'll come in a chat.
He was one of the surf instructors working for the lodge. We became friends and he brought me along to the NGO that he started. It's called J-Bay Surf House. This is where he takes the kids from the township of Jeffreys Bay and teaches them how to surf. I wanted to get involved immediately, so I dropped the original idea of the surf project and replaced it with this. So for the next week, I followed Jamil and the kids around with my camera. I would try and create a video showcasing his NGO and then use my own social media to raise money. This would be the new project. After the 2 weeks ended, we were back on the road headed for Mozambique. I would then edit the project from there and that would be it. But I couldn't shake Jeffreys Bay from my head. I had such a good time at the surf lodge that I had an idea of running my own camps with them. After all, my favourite job was working in hostels, and my dream is to open up my own hostel someday. So I figured this would be really good practice. So I went live to all my followers with the idea of this surf camp in South Africa. Once I finalised the price and package, we went live. It sold out in 10 minutes. And now, even though I was on the road, I knew I would be going back to Jeffreys Bay in October. There was nothing left to do but to drive to Mozambique, stopping off along the way to see all the beauty Africa had to offer. You give me the number and that's how many skips I get.
14.
14!
Through valleys as far as the eye can see. I'll be waiting on you till you're.
You know, skimming's actually the first game ever invented.
Says who?
What?
Says who?
Thanks.
Hell yeah.
Science can make stuff up so can I, huh?
Come back.
Oh, sláinte.
Yeah, that's Irish. Sláinte. I loved Mozambique. They say it's the land of the good people, and I can't argue with that. I didn't film much here though. I was too busy enjoying myself, but it was definitely one of my favourite countries. For most of our time here, we stayed in a small surf town called Tofu. We just ate nice fruit and surfed our brains out every single day. With my surf camp creeping up, I had to get ready to bring the car back to South Africa. But my plan was to take the long way around. I'd take the car from Mozambique, across Zimbabwe and Botswana, all the way to Namibia, and then back to the other side of South Africa, just in time for my surf camp. At this point, I had just left my friend and I was all on my own. I somehow managed to convince Emily from the surf lodge to come and join me for this road trip.
I don't really know what I'm doing.
We drove across the entire length of Zimbabwe, stopping off whenever we wanted to. There was one place in particular that we both really wanted to see, and that was Victoria Falls. You know how you read a lot about things but you never ever imagine that they'll actually live up to the hype. That was Victoria Falls for me. We drove for days in Zimbabwe, sleeping in the car at the side of the road, and literally this made it all worth it. Zimbabwe was lovely but a lot more expensive than we anticipated. We found some work with the Victoria Falls River Lodge, and this is one of my favourite places I ever stayed. We'd wake up every morning to elephants crossing the river and feeding straight in our backyard.
Fucking hell.
Botswana was unbelievable. You could drive down the motorway anywhere and pull over and see thousands of elephants out the window.
A bit stinky.
You smell the poo?
I smell the poo.
This is where I realised there was no need to pay entry into a national park, because the whole of Botswana was one. Now, saying that, we did go to a lot of national parks in Botswana, but my favourite part is when we took the car and we went off-roading.
I don't know where to drive. There's literally nothing around us. I don't really know what I'm doing.
We ended up hearing a lot about the salt flats in Botswana. We heard about a little island you can get to by going off-road. Standing on the island, nothing but salt pan as far as the eye could see, we went a little further out. This is where we began blowing up the airbed, and we wild camped under the stairs here on the salt pan. Trying to sleep that night was like nothing I've ever had before. Every so often you get a little jolt of adrenaline while camping in a country where lions roam free. Every sound you hear during the night, your mind jumps to danger. But in actual fact, it's just the cooling down of a 1996 Mitsubishi Pajero that has been worked a little too hard. And that's Botswana for you lads. What a gaff. So me and Emily just drove into the middle of the salt pan in Botswana. Just the two of us. I'll give you a look at what it looks like. This is where we're spending the night. Just gonna lie out on the blow up bed and watch the stars tonight and see what it's like. Hopefully there's no animals in the area, because that would not be good. No, 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 no. Store-bought warm milk, some Weetabix. What a dessert. I had never really been to a place like Namibia before. You could drive for like 6 hours and not see anyone on the road. The population is estimated at 2.5 million, and it's roughly about 12 times the size of Ireland. The main thing I wanted to see was Deadflay, a valley surrounded by the world's highest sand dunes. Hundreds of dead trees lie in the centre. The skeletons of the trees are 600 to 700 years old. Too dry for the trees to decompose, they're stuck there forever. I thought it was so fascinating. I found out how these dunes are created. You see, imagine this water bottle is rain. It rains and rains all night and it compacts the sand together. The wind then blows, but it can't move the compacted sand. And then over time this creates the dunes we see. The things you learn while travelling, huh? In Namibia alone, we blew 3 tires. On our last night in Namibia, as we were driving up this hill, we were gifted with a moonrise. One of the most beautiful, unplanned things I've ever seen.
Oh my god. That's fucking insane. Moon, and bang. Look at that!
To get back on time, we had to drive 24 hours straight from Namibia all the way to Jeffreys Bay, South Africa.
Come out and stretch.
We were exhausted. Our car window got smashed in Zimbabwe, so we drove the whole way back with one window down. This was the sunrise we got 2 hours before arriving to Jeffreys Bay. And honestly, the road trip of a lifetime. We didn't have much time to chill though, because my surf camp will be starting soon. It was so cool seeing a group of people from all around the world coming together. I really loved the community aspect. People from different backgrounds with shared interest in travel, nature and trying new things all coming together. And I'll always be very grateful to everyone that came down and gave me a chance to make all this happen. I really did love every single second of it. So much so that I organised 2 more camps. The next couple of months would soon get very busy. Here's a rough idea of what a camp looks like. My next camp was in a couple of weeks, and in the meantime my visa was about to expire. So I had to leave for a few weeks in order to come back. I chose Mauritius, a tiny island off the eastern coast of Africa. I didn't have any plans here at all. When I got to the airport, I realised when I checked Hostel World that there were no hostels at all in Mauritius. So I put up a story laughing about it. I had 2 internet strangers reach out to me, Sean and Julian, and they offered me a place at theirs. We went from internet strangers to friends, and I stayed with them for the whole 2 weeks. We got mopeds and explored the island. And then when the 2 weeks were up, I went back to my second surf camp. I gave my camps a name and started running them as the Fleetwood Pack. I had the idea of starting a travel community, a place to put all my tips and tricks for travelling, as well as a place for everyone to meet like-minded people to travel with, share tips and explore the world together. And that's something I'm working on right now, to have the community and the camps together in one. After my second camp, I met up with Jamil. I had a couple of videos about J-Bay Surf House, but none of them got the attention I was hoping for. So we made a new plan. We would run an untrained marathon and start a GoFundMe in the hopes people would see it and donate. I figured the worse we were prepared, the more money people would be willing to donate. So we did the exact opposite of what you're supposed to do before a marathon. The night before the marathon, I ate KFC and the lads played beer pong. The next morning, we ran the marathon. Jamil's running shoes were 2 sizes too big, and he also ran in a pair of board shorts.
How you feeling?
Just like Forrest Gump, we kept on running, and around 5 hours later we finished the marathon. My body would be broken up for the rest of the week. Jamil's kids were now looking to start competing in competitions. There was a lot of competitions coming up soon, and for the kids to compete he needed money for fees, transport, accommodation as well as surfing equipment and other stuff. We managed to raise nearly €9,000 in total before the marathon, and then afterwards I got to see where that money was going. A couple of the kids won the competition that day. Going forward I'm trying to stay as involved as I can with J-Bay Surf House and Jamil. But for now my visa was about to expire and I had to leave. So we flew off to Madagascar. Madagascar was one of the most remote places I ever travelled to. It is as far off the beaten track as you can possibly go. I had a month until my next surf camp, so I chose to spend that whole month here. And it was absolutely stunning. We started travelling on the mainland, but we didn't get very far. The roads are almost non-existent, so it makes getting around a serious challenge. And the crazy thing is that everything I had done until now in Africa was a walk in the park compared to Madagascar. It was a fantastic adventure, and not something you get to do too often. I laughed a lot and cried more than I thought possible. No, seriously, watch out for the food in Madagascar.
This is your site not to eat the street food, no matter how enticing it might be. Do not fucking do it. Save this video and next time you're gonna eat street food, come back and watch it.
The last thing I wanted to do in Madagascar was to hit up this island that I seen on Instagram called Nosy Oranje. When the tide drops, you can walk straight across from this island to a neighbouring island. The water here looks like blue Gatorade and it's surrounded by wildlife. We spent all day in the water following these turtles, and it was one of the last things we did here in Madagascar. After that, it was time to head back to South Africa for my final surf camp of the year. After that last surf camp ended, I was officially living in Africa an entire year. My original plan was to stay here a year and then move on after. But I haven't even scratched the surface of Africa yet, and I absolutely love it. So I had a kind of crazy idea to see more of Africa. So I went ahead and bought my own car. I put a bed in the back and I essentially turned it into my own home. My plan is simple. Well, actually not so simple. I want to drive it from South Africa all the way back to Ireland over the next year, stopping off in as many countries as I can along the way, and simply seeing if there's any more to that ayahuasca dream I had 2 years ago. I have no idea what's going to happen, but I'm very excited to have another year on this beautiful continent. And now, as we come to the end of the video, if you like what you saw so far, then follow along for the rest of the journey, because we're only getting started. Thanks for watching. Peace.